What a good morning. Today we're looking at one of the most interesting personalities in the Bible. His name is Joseph. Now, when I first heard the name Joseph, I go, okay, Joseph and Mary. No, this Joseph is from the Old Testament, the book of Genesis. From chapter 37 all the way through 50, Genesis focuses on this one man, his life, his tragedies, his achievements. It's incredible the difference he's made in the world. In fact, as we look through history, he saved two civilizations, both the Egyptians and the Jews, because God placed him right where he needed to be at that point in time. And you look in your own life, we all have trials and tribulations. We have unexpected events, but we work through them. But what helps us and empowers us, as it did him, is the presence of God in our life. Because whether we have a good day, a bad day, whether there's tragedies, whether it's great victories, God is with us the same every single day. So when we feel like, well, I'm away from God, you're not. He's as close as you feel when he's away as when you know he's right there with you, because he doesn't move. He loves you and cares deeply for you and wants you to have the victories you need. But when you're going through that difficult time, he's there, and sometimes he carries us because we love very much. And sometimes loved ones pass away, and it hurts us deeply, and God's there to help us. And other times we have a great celebration of victory. Everything went well. He's there as well. And so Joseph had these times, and we'll learn much from his life today. Now, one thing I found is he has 7 major setbacks. You know, sometimes we go, well, I've had a setback, so I'm done with them. No, they come around and they come around. They visit you at the worst possible time. They show up. But still, God's with you. So let's look at his setbacks. The first setback is growing up, being ignored and mistreated by his siblings. It's amazing. He grew up being mistreated and ignored by his siblings. He's the number 11 of 12. And it's a very mixed up family. So let's look at it. In Genesis 37 and verses 3 through 5. Now Jacob loved Joseph more than all of his other children. Now it says Jacob here. God changed his name to Israel. So when you see Jacob and Israel, it's the same fellow, okay? So he loved him more than all of his other children. Well, that doesn't bode well to the other children, does it? You got one favorite and everybody knows it. There's some stress in the family. Because Joseph was born in Jacob's old age. So one day Jacob gave Joseph a special ornamental robe. Now, I'm going to point this out to you. What's so special about this robe? It designated the young brother, number 11, as the chieftain of the clan. Do you think the older brothers are going to like that? This little pipsqueak is going to be the leader of the clan, and we got to put up with him? So it added fuel to the fire. Now, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved him more than them, they hated Joseph, and they would not even speak to him or acknowledge him. And when Joseph told his 11 brothers about a great dream from God, they hated him even more. What did he dream? God gave him the dream. 2 of them. And they didn't like it even though it was from God. You know, sometimes we get messages from God and we go, thank you, but I want to do something else. How does that work out? Not very well, does it? So here we have Jacob with 12 children, 12 sons. Now, actually, you have Benjamin is born just a little bit later, but we'll come to him later. But there's 4 different women, so that you talk about a really mixed up life. And there's at least one daughter, Diana, in the mix. And Joseph is known as the dreamer, the pampered one that has everything going his way, and so his siblings don't like him at all. So when you look at it, there's some major problems here in this family. And what did Joseph do to catch that? Nothing. Nothing. And yet, a major setback, his siblings hate him. Another setback, being tossed into a pit of rejection. And he literally got tossed into a pit of rejection. It's one thing for people to not like you on Facebook or send you a dirty message. You're a terrible person. It's quite another for them to take off your robe and throw you head first into a pit, and there's no water, no food, no nothing, and there's no getting out. Now, that's what I call real rejection. In Genesis chapter 37, verse 18, one day when Joseph's brothers were out in the fields, they saw Joseph coming from a distance, and they made plans to kill him. You read this, you go, well, here are the other brothers, and they see him coming, and they said, here he comes. Dad's nowhere around. There's nobody else around. He is ours. Can you think of the depravity of these guys? Total opposite of what they should be. So let's look more. Here comes that dreamer, they explained. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into a deep pit. We can tell our father that a wild animal attacked him and ate him. Then we'll see what becomes of his great dreams. So if we get rid of the dreamer, then God's plans won't happen. Really? Really? God can change his plans anytime he wants. And if one person chooses not to be used by God, or a tragedy happens to him, God will raise up another. That's no problem for God. Sometimes we think God is limited. If we do this, well, he can't do it. You want to get God to laugh with the angels? Yeah, right. So you're not going to get the blessing. Somebody else will get the blessing. But it's still going to happen whatever God says, either way. Now you look at this setback, a painful experience. Here your father has sent you to check on the other guys. They see you coming, what happens? They decide they're going to kill you instead of respect you. Very sad. Now notice, they don't want to kill him. They don't want, quote, blood on their hands. They'll just let him starve to death. You know what? I'd rather them just hit me over the head than let me starve to death. That's a far worse death. So they threw him in this pit of rejection. Now in life, you may well have been rejected by people. You thought you were in their group, and then suddenly you were out of their group. You thought people would receive you when you go, and they want everything to do with you. Some people you helped, and then they reject you. It's amazing. Consider this. Genesis 37:21. Then Reuben said, let's not kill him. Now, who's Reuben? He's the elder brother. Now, who should have the most clout in the family after the father? The elder son. And this right here is the case in point why he was not chosen to be the leader of the family. Because he has an opportunity to say, hey guys, I don't care what you say. He's our brother. I will guarantee him going back. You guys shut up. And it would have stopped it. And you know what? One of the other brothers could have stood up too. But it was Reuben's responsibility. But look what he does. Let's not kill him. Let's throw him into the pit in the wilderness. That way we won't shed any blood. He said this, secretly planning to save Joseph and send him back to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers stripped him of his favorite robe, then tossed him into the pit, which was a dry well without any water in it. So here you have rejection, total rejection. Not only are we going to ostracize you, we want you dead. Now I know many of you have been hurt at different times in your life by rejection. And as a pastor, I want to say, God will get you through this. I'm sorry you've been hurt, but God will get you through this to a much better place in life. Now, the third setback he has is being sold out for money. It's amazing what people do when money's involved. You know, you can have one big happy family, and suddenly there's some extra money on the table, and then everybody scrambles for this extra money. It's very sad. I've seen it happen many times. And other families that love the Lord, it's a non-issue. But what do we want to do? No big deal. But this family, they weren't walking with God. They weren't serving Him. And so there's an immediate problem going on here. In Genesis 37:26, after they threw Joseph into the pit, the brothers sat down to eat dinner. Now get this. Your brother's over there in a pit, and he's not being quiet. Hey, get me out of here. And they just said, well, let's have dinner now. Our problem's solved. We're just going to have our dinner and enjoy over here. But then they saw a caravan of traders passing by, headed to Egypt, with camels that were loaded with spices and balm and myrrh. Then Judah said to his brothers, Judah is the third eldest, just know that. So another one that should be speaking up, save our brother, but he doesn't. In fact, he wants some money. We won't gain anything if we just let our brother die in this pit, and we'll all share in his murder cover-up. So why don't we do this? Let's sell our brother to these traders. And all the brothers thought that it was a good idea. So they sold Joseph for 12 shekels to the traders, and they took him to Egypt. Now here we have, hey guys, we don't want him to die. Let's get some extra money. Let's send him off, and we'll be rid of him, never remembered anymore. So all of them thought it's a good idea. Now get this. The majority is not always right. You know, the 12 spies, they had sent out 12 spies to check out Israel. What happens? 2 came back, the minority report. They said, yeah, we can do it. The other 10 said we can't. They took a vote. Oh, we can't go in. And everybody that said, no, we can't go in, died in the wilderness. In this case, you have 11 against 1. Actually, technically, it's 10 against 1 because Benjamin wasn't born yet, so he can't count in against him. And that's the majority. He's outvoted. You're going to sold into slavery, Buster. They were wrong. So just because other people say no, or other people say we're going to do this, or other people say, oh, we all voted together, we're going to do this, keep your integrity. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. You do what you're supposed to do, regardless what they do. Don't take a vote and kind of check the wind. Well, which way has the wind blowing today? Oh, we counted these numbers up. This is what we got to do. No. Keep your integrity. Do what God wants you to do. Period. Got more to look at. Consider this. In that day, a good slave sold for 30 shekels. So they sold him at a bargain basement price. I guess maybe he wasn't developed enough, not maybe tall enough, and so he gets sold off for a bargain basement price. And the consequences of their action affected Joseph the rest of his life, and yet when he could do them even up the score, we'll look later, he didn't. Amen. He didn't. You know what? God used their foolishness, their wrong, to bring about stepping stones that would bring Joseph ultimately to be the prime minister of Egypt. Yeah. And so maybe you've had a setback in life. You've had problems. You've been mistreated. You've been sidelined. You have been shoved aside, and you go, I'll never have any hope. I can never get ahead. Don't believe that. That's not from God. Because God will use every single hurt you have along the way as stepping stones to get you ultimately where He needs you to be, where there'll be great blessings, where you can be encouragement, and you can be loved greatly. So don't let that hold you back. Move forward. You have a great time of history. Now, the fourth setback is losing his identity. Losing his identity. You know, what do you mean lose his identity? Well, to his family, he's considered dead. Look at Genesis 37, verse 31. Then his brothers took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in blood. And then they took the robe back to their father and said, "We found this coat." I don't like this. "Does it belong to your son?" Now, wait a second. He's your brother, right? But instead of saying, is this our brothers? No, is it your sons? Remember, we are our brother's keeper. We are to take care of not just our brothers, but our friends and those beyond that we love and care for. And those who have nobody, we're supposed to help them. But they didn't. Joseph recognized it and cried out, "Yes, some wild animal must have killed Joseph and torn him to pieces." Then Jacob sobbed a long time, and everyone tried to comfort him, but he said, "I'll grieve this loss until the day I die." Here Joseph is off to a foreign country, sold in slavery, no rights. He's gone from being the pampered son, the one who'd be the next chieftain, the next one who could lead the clan, to now being the lowest of society. And here the robe is taken. Shattered his family, his father, his mother. And they grieve. Although if you read the whole story, their grief gets changed from mourning to great joy later on. Remember, God uses our setbacks to bring joy later. So don't be stuck in the past. 5. The 5th setback is forced to take a job he didn't want. Forced to take a job he didn't want. Have you ever taken a job you didn't want? I think we all have at times. When I first moved back to Navasota, when I was looking for a church to lead, of all things, I worked in Navasota ISD as a substitute teacher. You talk about something frightening, a substitute teacher. What I found is there's a lot of great kids in the Navasota School District. And in every school district, just as here, there are a few that are kind of knuckleheads. But, if you encourage them a little bit, you can still work through it. I survived, amazing. And so a lot of good kids here. But I never dreamed I'd ever work as a Sunday school as a substitute teacher. Believe me, that didn't last very long. No way. I remember when I was a kid and had a substitute teacher for math in 5th grade. Our teacher was actually killed by his own brother-in-law. And our teacher, I can't remember his name. I'm trying to remember it all morning. He was a big, black, burly man, and he knew math forward and backwards, and you didn't mess with him. And then he has passed away. And then you bring a substitute teacher in after a disciplinarian who was one tough, godly man. We ran 3 substitute teachers out. They ran out during class, and we just sat there. Well, where's the next one? Oh, man. Taking a job you didn't want. That's just extra today. Imagine that. In Genesis 37:36, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the traders sold Joseph to be a slave of Potiphar, a man who was an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now, notice where he gets placed. He gets placed in a palatial place rather than a shack. It's amazing. So, his brothers are back tending the sheep and goats, etc. Joseph is in a palatial palace because this is the leader of the Pharaoh's elite guard to protect him. So it's not exactly a very bad place. In fact, the conditions are good, although he's still not free to go. It's kind of like a gilded cage is still a cage, right? It may look pretty, but it's not the best place you want to be. But what happened? He makes the most of it. Because where he goes, who is with him? God is with him. And everywhere he goes, God blesses. And he's learning to grow and become a great man. Where before he was the pampered son of the chieftain. Now he's starting at the lowest rank and he's moving his way up. Not by taking advantage of others, not by mistreating others, not by pushing his way to the front, by God raising him up because what? He has integrity. Because he has integrity, he moves right up to being in charge and leading things. It's amazing. What he did the best he could everywhere God sent him with God's help. And that's what all of us need to do. Wherever God places, make it different because God is with you. Now the sixth setback, being punished for doing what? The right thing. Have you ever been punished for doing the right thing? Have you ever done the right thing and somebody else took responsibility for what you did? And they got the credit, and then you wound up being cast off aside. Yeah, that happens in life. So let's look at this. In Genesis 39 and verse 6. Now Joseph was well built and very handsome. After a while, his master's wife took notice and began to lust for him. And she begged, "Come to bed with me." But Joseph refused, saying, "How can I do such an evil thing and sin against God and my master?" Notice, he says, if I do that, I'm sinning against God, which is our primary responsibility, and then to Potiphar, who has entrusted him with everything. He said, I can't do it. And though she tempted Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her, even to be alone with her. But one day when Joseph was working inside the house, none of the household servants were inside. So Potiphar's wife came up behind him, grabbed him by his tunic, demanding, "Sleep with me right now." You know what? She hadn't been watching soap operas, had she? No, for some reason she wasn't watching Guiding Light or one of these other various ones. She decided to just take things in her own hands. And so she had his tunic on in her hands. Not very good. But Joseph resisted, and he wiggled out of his tunic and ran outside. Boy, he was quite a wiggler, wasn't he? He said, "I'm not hanging around for this. Get me out of here." When she saw that she still had the tunic in his hands, she made up the story for her other servants. "Look, this Hebrew slave tried to assault me, and I screamed, and he ran out the house. But he left his tunic here." Imagine that. When her husband came home, she gave him the same story, and Potiphar burned with anger. When he heard his wife's accusations, he arrested Joseph on the spot and dragged him off and threw him into the king's prison. Here he does everything right. What happens? He gets punished for doing what's right. And that happens sometimes in life. You do everything like you should, and what happens? You get abused. You get mistreated. You get victimed, become a victim. It's terrible. And yet God still used this terrible event to do things more. Because now he's in prison. You say, well, what's good about being in prison? Well, there's more to it. The seventh setback. Being forgotten by people he helped. Being forgotten by people he helped. Now in Genesis chapter 40, there's a story of the Pharaoh's wine steward, and also he's called the butler in other translations, but just the wine steward and the baker. But in all these stories, they always call the other guy the baker. Well, what happened between the wine steward and the baker? Both of them got accused of wrongdoing, and so they get thrown in prison with Joseph. And each one has a dream. And Joseph tells the wine steward or the butler, he says, "You're going to be restored to your position. But Mr. Baker, it's not going to be a good outcome. You're going to die." In Genesis 40, verse 14, Joseph said to the king's wine steward, "When you are freed from prison and restored to your position with Pharaoh, please show me kindness and remember to mention me to the king so I can get out of this prison. I was forcibly kidnapped from my homeland. Now I'm stuck in this prison even though I've done nothing to deserve it." But the wine steward never gave Joseph another thought. He forgot all about him. Have you done things for others and they just move on and forgot you? You know, that's happened to me multiple times in life, but you know what? I've never become bitter. Well, they've disappointed me. I've never become bitter, and it has not kept me from helping other people. Because I'm responsible to do what I'm supposed to, regardless of what they do. And even though they don't appreciate it, they don't show kindness back, that's okay. I did what God wanted me to do. And you all need to do the same. I'm sure if you look through these 7 setbacks he had, you can identify with many of these. Because as we live in life, we experience these things. Don't let it sour you. Don't cause you to give up. Don't cause you to stop doing what God wants you to do. Remember, God is with you through every one of these. And I'd say to you, these setbacks, these heartbreaks, this mistreatment, wind up being stepping stones that God uses to prepare you ultimately where he needs you to be. So why in the world and how could Joseph be so resilient? I don't know about you, but what he went through those 7 times, that was really hard to take. But this is what helped him. First, he depended on what? God's presence, no matter where he was. God's presence, no matter where he was. When he was wearing the robe of his father, going to visit his brothers, he felt God's presence. When he got thrown into the pit, he felt God's presence. When he got sold into slavery, he felt God's presence. When he got thrown into prison, he felt God's presence. When he gets threatened before the Pharaoh, the ruler of the land, he feels God's presence. It doesn't matter where he went, he always felt God's presence. In Acts chapter 7, verse 9, this is in the pit, imagine that. Joseph's sons become jealous with their brother, Joseph, and they sold him to be a slave in Egypt. But the Lord was with Joseph and brought him safely through all his troubles. Circle the word safely. You say, why? God didn't take him out of his troubles. He brought him safely through his trouble. And so you might be in a troubled situation. I want you to know God is going to bring you safely through it, even though it will be hard getting out. You will face some opposition. You'll face some heartache getting out of that. But God will bring you through safely because he's with you. In Genesis 39, verses 1 and 2. Now, when the slave traders arrived in Egypt, they sold Joseph to a man named Potiphar, who was one of Potiphar's officials, the captain of the palace guard. The Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. He lived and served in the home of the Egyptian master. Now notice, Joseph winds up being with what? A very successful man. And so he's got a really nice place to be and serve. So he's not a slave to just anybody. He's a slave to somebody who has great resources, a great place to be, not some shack out in the middle of the desert where you get heat stroke. No, he's in one of the best places to be. So he's living in this palazzo, as you would say, a palatial home, very nice to be at, when others are having it more difficult. Now, what about at Potiphar's? In Genesis 39, verse 3, Potiphar realized that the Lord was with Joseph. Now, I've underlined that for you, but circle that. The Lord was with Joseph. Even in the midst of a dreadful situation, others could see God was with him. And that the Lord was making him successful in everything he did. So Potiphar was very happy with Joseph's work and hired him to be his personal aide. He put Joseph in charge of everything in his home and trusted him with everything he owned. Then God blessed everyone working in Potiphar's household because of Joseph, and God blessed everything that belonged to Potiphar too. Now notice, Joseph was not just successful, everyone around him became successful. See, our attitude, our work ethic, how we live our life brings other people up or tears them down. I've watched people on the corporate ladder, they stomp on everybody going up. Then somewhere along the way, they always wind up falling off that ladder. And it's a long way back down that corporate ladder. Same thing happens just in our relational life. Where you go, where you are. Clubs and various meetings. Are you lifting up everybody at where you go, or are you kind of trying to get up ahead? No, we're supposed to lift everybody up with us. And it's amazing, as we lift up others, we get lifted up ourselves. We don't get left behind. So Joseph didn't look upon his work as something he had to do. He looked at it this way. God had placed him there, so he was going to make the best of that situation until God moved him out and gave him a way safely to get through this troubled time in his life. Now further, in Genesis 39, verse 20, Joseph was thrown into prison where all the king's prisoners were held. Of course, he winds up in prison because he gets falsely accused of rape. He didn't do anything. He tried to get away and ran. But now he gets into prison. So he did everything right in the palatial place he was, and yet he still gets a further place into prison. But notice it's just not any prison. It's where the king's prisoners are. It's kind of like the difference between TDC and the Fed, right? Whole different way that everything gets run. And so he gets into the federal prison instead of TDC. Just saying. We got great people that work in TDC, and I really pray for them all the time, as well as those who are there as offenders. So, we got to make a difference. But he was, of all places, if you're going to be in prison, he was in the best place, although you don't want to be in prison. But even there, the Lord was with Joseph. So, notice, he got thrown into a pit, he gets thrown into slavery, now he's thrown into prison. So he keeps on getting knocked down, knocked down, knocked down. And every time, even though he gets knocked down, what happens? He makes the place better. And God caused the prison warden to like Joseph. Before long, the jailer had put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and everything that happened in the prison. Now think about if you're guarding the king's prisoners, many of them will come in there and they'll go back and get put back in their position. So if you mistreat them and they get back in position, what happens? It's going to get back on you. So who's in charge? Joseph. Joseph. In verse 23, the jailer did not have a worry about anything from which Joseph was responsible because the Lord was with Joseph. Notice again, the Lord is with Joseph. And whatever he did was blessed, and God made him successful in everything he did. So he's in a terrible situation. What does he do? He makes the best of it until God moves him out. Why was God doing this? He was preparing him for a special situation. When the door was open, Joseph would be ready and be able to take on the responsibility. Do you realize at no time do we find that God is absent from Joseph? It doesn't matter in the pit, in slavery, or in prison, God was with him the entire time. God never abandoned him, never gave up on him. When you get exhausted, depressed, and run down, know that God is there with you. He's not going to leave you. Friends may abandon you, relatives may abandon you, but God never will. Second thing, he depended on God's plan and God's purpose, no matter how long it took. He depended on God's plan and purpose, no matter how long it took. Now, I'm a man of action. And God gives me a project, what happens? I'm going to get it done now. I learned this early in college. When they give you an assignment, they have that assignment done, a writing assignment. It always comes due when there's a major exam, same time. And so if you put off writing that major paper, what happens? You don't study for your exam, or you write a poor paper because you can't do both at the same time. And what happens? Your grades suffer. So I learned real quick, don't procrastinate when you're in the university. You do it right then. So I've carried that over in my life. Okay, if I got an assignment to do, God gives me an assignment, what happens? I'm going to do it now. Because when I was younger, I would procrastinate. I was terrible about that. Well, I'll get around to it. No way. I got an assignment, I move on. So when I've got to wait, I go, God, I'm here. God, I'm here. I've done everything. God says, that's fine. I've got other things for you to do right now. Go get things ready. It's on my schedule, not yours, Max. And that's how all of us are. God's on his own schedule. We're not on his schedule. We got to listen to him so we get on his schedule. And through the circumstances of God placed him there, what happened? He became the prime minister of all of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. Consider. Genesis chapter 50, verse 19. Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in a place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, saving the lives of many." You say, well, what's the context of that? It's very important. There were 7 years of great wealth, great prosperity, then 7 years of famine. They're in the years of famine, and what happens? It's affecting the land of Palestine where his brothers are. And now here's Joseph, the prime minister of Egypt. And so they come to get grain because they're hungry, they need food. They don't recognize Joseph. He recognizes them immediately. He says, yeah, there's that motley crew. There's my brothers. And so he has them taken to a palatial hall. And they go, whoa, we're a bunch of shepherds. What are we doing in this place? And there's guards all around. They go, And this guy up front, what is going on with this? And then he orders the guards out. Out. And there he is with his brothers. And you know what? They're trembling in their boots. What's going to happen? They tells him, I'm Joseph. And you can think, they're thinking, can I die right now? What's he going to do to us? He's this powerful person. We're nobodies. And then he says, don't be afraid. I don't know about you, but I'd still be afraid if I was one of them. But then he tells them, am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended for good, to accomplish what's now being done, to saving the lives of many. They rejected him. They mistreated him. But God used it to send him on ahead to preserve the known world. Incredible how God works when we have no idea what he's doing. The third one. He depended on God's help in every challenge. He depended on God's help in every challenge, and we need to depend on God's help in every challenge. Because there are many challenges we'll face, and we have to depend on God for our help. Remember, I'm not alone. You're not alone. If you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, God will never leave you, never forsake you. Depend on God's purpose and plan for your life. He has both. There's a reason we're here. In fact, multiple reasons. And he has a plan to use those abilities and those talents he's given you for great things. Now remember the wine steward. He's in the king's court. Now there's a problem. The king's had a nightmare. And so they get all the guys together that's supposed to be wise, and they go, we don't know. And now, at just the right time, the wine steward who had forgotten Joseph a long time ago in prison, it comes to him and says, wait a second. There's a guy in prison named Joseph. They said, well, go get him. Now, can you imagine this? You're languishing in prison, and the guards come to get you. You go, uh-oh, this isn't good. They say, where's this Joseph guy? Get here. Okay, I guess it's my day, and it's not a good day. But to his shock and amazement, they said, okay, Buster, we're going to take you over here to the best place, because you got to get a good bath. So they make sure he gets a good bath. Then he gets fresh new clothes on and go, I guess I'm going to live today. Maybe I'm being promoted out of prison to do something else. And then the next thing he knows, he's taken before the ruler of the land. And he said, can you interpret dreams? And this is his response. Genesis 41, verse 15. The king said to him, I've had a dream, and no one can explain it. I have been told that you can interpret dreams. Joseph answered the king, I am not able to do this. Of course, then there's a hush over the group. I thought he could interpret dreams. The wine steward's going, oh no, it's my death too. But he says, but God can. I can't explain the meaning of dreams, but God will do this for the king. Everything changes. He's saying, God can do it, I can't. So let's look at it. In Genesis 41, verse 39. After he interprets the dreams, then everybody comes together and his leadership says, who can do this? We've got 7 years of famine. Before that will be 7 years of plenty. What do we do? And Pharaoh just kind of looks around and goes, well, these guys couldn't answer my question, but that guy could. And he said, God helped him. Okay, that's the man. Consider. As they discussed who should be appointed for the job, Pharaoh said, who could do it better than Joseph? For he is the man who's obviously filled with the Spirit of God. Now remember, Pharaoh thinks he's a god. And he's saying, this guy's God's better than my God, so we need to use him. What a testimony before the whole known world that God is the real God. The king said to Joseph, it's obvious that you have greater wisdom and insight than anyone else. So I'm putting you in charge of my country and my people and will obey your orders. Your authority will be second only to mine. I will appoint you governor of all of Egypt. The king removed from his finger the ring engraved with the royal seal and put it on Joseph's finger. He put a fine linen robe on him and placed a gold chain around his neck. And the king said to him, I am the king. And I say that no one in all of Egypt shall as much as lift a hand or a foot without your permission. He's going from a guy in prison who moves up to running the prison, even though he's still in prison, to being the prime minister of Egypt. Ultimate power of the day. And how could God give him the ultimate power? Because Joseph was faithful in the little things. And so when it came time for the big things, he acted the same ways he did when he had nothing. And that's the man or woman that God can use to do great things. I don't know what you're going through in life, but I got 3 questions for all of us to consider. Will you depend on God's presence and purpose no matter where you are? Will you depend on God's presence and purpose no matter where you are, because you need to have that in your life? It doesn't matter how low you go or high you go, you need God's purpose and presence. Second, whether you're in a pit or a palatial place or a prison or a palace, will you depend on God's plan and purpose for your life? Will you depend on God's plan and purpose? Don't make up your own purpose. What is God's purpose and plan for your life? And seize the moment. God has great opportunities for you to help and make a great difference. Take it, because God will raise you up. 3, this is the hardest one for me. No matter how long it takes, and remember those setbacks are stepping stones for God to get you where you need to be. Be faithful in the small things so that God can raise you up to do incredible things that you could never dream of doing. The foundation is knowing Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and repent of your sins. Receive Him. Follow Him in baptism and start living for Him, and your life will be transformed. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for bringing us through setbacks and using these as stepping stones to help us to realize that we can't do it by ourselves, that you will bring our lives through these times with your love, with your care, with your strength, and with your protection. And you'll even bring us through painful and harmful times and hurtful times. And you'll use those times to strengthen us and empower us. Every setback we have is actually a big stepping stone to get us where you need us to be, to the position and blessings you have in store for us. Help us to be faithful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.